Coming up,
I think AI should be a tool. You should use an AI as a tool to help you in situations where normally you would need, for example, many persons, or it's, let's say, in the middle of the night, or some other reason why human beings are not, let's say, that concentrated.
It's more like giving brain to the cameras or
Yeah.
giving brain to the entire system. So it narrows down, increases productivity, efficiency as well, with very high accuracy.
But let's say just there's a person lying on the ground somewhere. How long would it normally take for you to find this one person in one of your 150 cameras? We believe that with an AI, this will be faster. All important decisions need to be done by a person. Any decision that can actually lead to some kind of compensation should be finally handled by a person.
So, for example, integrating with body cams or enabling firefighters to detect if there's a live fire, or perhaps number plate recognition. These are the possibilities.
In a combination of person and AI, I personally believe this will be the best combination. You will get a very good result.
welcome to Making Waves, a podcast where we explore the technology, people and real-world challenges shaping the world of critical communications. From PMR radio to next-gen broadband, we talk to industry experts and frontline users to uncover the pain points, innovations and decisions defining performance under pressure. If it keeps teams connected when it matters most, we'll be talking about it here. I'm Stuart with my co-host Lona.
Hello.
And this is Making Waves. So, Lona, what do we have today?
AI is everywhere, but what happens when artificial intelligence enters environments where mistakes can cost lives? Today we explore what AI really means for mission-critical communications. We're joined by Paras Kulkarni, sales engineer, and Walter Bensing, CEO of IrisNet, to explore how AI can create real, practical value for end users in critical communications, from public safety and utilities to transport, energy, and industrial operations. Rather than talking about AI in abstract terms, we focus on operational impact. How can AI support decision-making, improve situational awareness, enhance resilience, reduce human error, and ultimately reinforce systems where failure is simply not an option? Paras and Walter brings together startup innovation and operational realism, bridging advanced AI technology with real-world mission-critical use cases. Paras and Walter, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for the introduction, Lona. Maybe a little bit about myself. I'm the CEO of IrisNet GmbH. And we are a company that actually deals in AI, as you introduced very well. But we are focused on the technology that analyzes images and videos. We call it visual computing. So if you want to know what is in a video, what is in a stream, what is in an image, this is where we can help you. And we help you with an AI because many of these applications, as you talked about, in critical infrastructure, use a lot of cameras. But we will talk about that more detail later.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for hosting us, and looking forward to the podcast.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, both of you. I think today's going to be an interesting one. We're going a little bit off piece today, talking about AI. It's not a usual thing that we talk about in critical communications, but of course it's getting an ever-growing encroachment into the area in the world of critical communications and beyond. So let's see how the two worlds overlap during the course of this episode. So, Ward, if I turn to you first, AI is transforming almost every industry, but critical communications is a world where reliability and trust and predictability has more weight than just speed and things like this. So how do you see AI fitting into the mission-critical environments?
First, I also want to thank you for having us. I think AI bashing right now is a big thing. If you look at all the discussions you see, from my point of view, and this is basically the answer to your question, I think AI should be a tool. I think AI should help us as a human being in deciding what is necessary and helping us maybe to get faster or better or whatever. But the main answer is you should use an AI as a tool to help you in situations where normally you would need, for example, many persons, or it's, let's say, in the middle of the night or some other reason why human beings are not, let's say, that concentrated. So think of it as a tool that helps you, but it should not be the one that does the final decision. This is my answer.
Okay. So I'm sure we'll get into it more, but what I pick up is there's more of a focus on data bringing together, pattern recognition, operational intelligence. These are areas which your company, IrisNet, deals with today. In the mission-critical environments, operators are always overwhelmed by the amount of data they've got. So how can AI transform this raw data and information into clear, actionable situational awareness? How does it work?
I think the easiest way to answer this is by using a real life example. So, for example, if you think of, let's say, a mall, for example, you can think of it nowadays in Germany. I'm not sure about your part of the world, but in Germany, there might already be lots of cameras, right? So I've heard from one of our customers, there might be, for example, more than 100 cameras in such a huge mall. And if you want to secure this, I mean, this, as you said, this is a lot of data. Look at it from just the point of amount of data you get from 100 cameras. So what you are supposed to do? You have a big room, typically some kind of security room. They have some people watching all this camera. Okay, how many people would you use to watch 100 streams at the same time? So typically in these rooms that I see, there are maybe 3 or 4 persons, right? So what you do is you switch on, let's say by time, you switch on different cameras. Maybe you have even already some selection where you know there are some critical points, which is not 150. Maybe there are 50 ones that you know that there might something be happening, right? So because they are, I don't know, the front door or whatever. So it's still, this means you have 50 cameras and maybe 4 people in that room. So how do it now? You do it by time switching the cameras on and off, and we see a different selection of these cameras all the time. What we can do with an AI is watch all these 50 or even 150 streams at the same time and help you to focus on the ones where the AI thinks there's something happening. So from my point of view, the AI helps by concentrating on the things that you might need to focus on. Yes, it's not perfect, but on the other way, switching cameras all the time through is also not perfect from my point of view. So what I think is the AI helps you, as you said, you have a huge amount of data, right? And it helps you to focus on the, let's say, right ones, hopefully. This is what we want to do. But the decision making in the end will be done by the persons in this room. It's the same room. It still has the same 3 persons in it. But from our point of view, they then can focus on the cameras that actually there's actually something happening.
Yeah, and it's more like giving brain to the cameras or giving brain to the entire system. So it narrows down, increases productivity, efficiency as well. And on the other side, the use cases are wide, especially considering the applications of AI today and what we are doing. I think with very, let's say, high accuracy and focusing on specific use cases, I think it's.
So, and then you think about critical events. What would be a critical event in a mall? Maybe there was an attack, but attacks is a theme in itself. But let's say just there's a person lying on the ground somewhere. How long would it normally take for you to find this one person in one of your 150 cameras? And we believe that with an AI, this will be faster. So then you can help. You can send someone. You can call, I don't know, the ambulance or whatever is the typical situation. But from our point of view, the handling of the situation in this security room will not change. Just the focus, hopefully.
Okay, so what you're saying is that AI is a tool and it's for decision support and not really for decision replacement. That brings us to the human in the loop systems, building trust in AI and understanding the difference between augmentation and automation. Where should AI support human decision making, and where should humans always remain in control in critical communications operations?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. I can answer this question mostly for Germany, because in Germany, basically everything is ruled by law, right? So this means, for example, if I make an error and this error leads to someone getting hurt, then it's covered actually by the insurance of this company, because there is an insurance for me doing decisions. And if I do something wrong, it's covered, right? But if the AI does it, it's not covered. So from the law point of view, all, let's say, important decisions need to be done by a person. And because, very simple, in Germany, I'm not sure about the UK, but in Germany, it would not be covered by the insurance of the company. So that's a very simple answer to this question, meaning that any decision that can actually lead to some kind of compensation should be finally handled by a person.
I think from the answers you're giving, obviously there is a wider business and market area in the general public arena. Bringing it back to the professional communications world for a little bit. When I think of critical communications, I think of private networks. I think of like mobile operators, they will have sites dotted around a certain geography. And I see that the AI has at least an equal type of job to do in the kind of safety of not just personnel, which I think you're talking mostly about there, but also in the safety of the assets of the network as well. So give us a flavor of how some of the technology that you're looking at could actually lend itself to looking after personnel. So let's take some of the industries. So it could be a utility, an electricity company, that there were guys working together, that it's hazardous environments, or it could be something to do with public safety or whatever. But how do you see some of the applications of AI protecting those types of people, personnel, and the sites, the base station sites, for instance?
This is hard to differentiate between these two. For example, now discussing with a chemical company in Germany, they have these huge chemical reactors, right? Think of it like a house. These chemical reactors need to be some cleaning to do every year. There's some persons to go inside, and this is really dangerous. So you have these full body suits, you have masks with oxygen and these kind of things. And we are asked to build an application to make sure that all the rules that apply, and I can tell you there are lots of rules for this kind of companies with these kind of situations, that these are actually taken care of. There is already actually 2 other persons on that site due to all this regulation, but they still want an AI to make sure that all these regulations, which obviously are quite complex, are taken care of. For example, there's only 1 person allowed on this platform. The second person must be there, but further away, and so on. So there are lots of different rules, and they want to have an AI that applies all these rules, because obviously, if you do it every day of the year, you might not, as a human being, you might become not so strict with these kind of rules, right? Because you did it, 100 times already in this year, and the 101st times, you may forget some of these rules, and then what's happening, then there might be an accident. And this is why they also want to have an AI watching over these persons to make sure all these rules are taken care of.
So let's get into the kind of how does it actually work? What is possible? I think IrisNet have a solution, and a lot of it is based through the use of cameras, of course. So we're not talking about voice control or anything. It's primarily recognition through cameras. So that could take the form of photo screening, could be some gesture recognition, it could be a face or a whole person recognition for safety, should this person be on the site or not. It could be even object recognition. Is there an object down a rail tunnel that shouldn't be there, for instance, and thereby causing an alarm because it could be a security threat or whatever. There's a lot of extra things that could be added into what we would just think of critical communications as a kind of extra layer here. I'm conscious, though, that when you have all of this good stuff to help you, it improves reliability and safety and resilience, but it could also increase the system complexity. So how do you find in practice, how do you get over that, this increased complexity? How is it absorbed somehow?
Yeah, this is a very good question. Basically, what our customers expect in the end is the number of errors needs to be very low to be an accepted application by a customer, right? You do not want false alarms all the time, because if you get lots of false alarms, then nobody will listen to your alarms. And on the other side, you also need alarms if it's really necessary. So this is a very difficult balance that actually needs to be applied for each customer different. As in this case, if lives depend on it, obviously, you have to be more on the cautious side than if it's just, let's say, an information that you might need. And you ask what you need. Basically, as you said, we need a camera. Typically, we need a camera. There are lots of different cameras with different possibilities. But let's just say you have a normal camera. And I always make the joke that we like good cameras. So this is one thing, but also many of these applications, especially in the field of critical communication, they do not want the information to leave the ground of the company, right? So they do not want to have, for example, a cloud solution or something like that, because this would already be some kind of security or a potential security breach. So this means that you need, let's say, a system or something that's set up on the premises of our customer that allows you to analyze the video. So this means this could be an IoT device, actually very small. We have very small IoT devices, which you can put basically everywhere, but this could also be bigger. Let's say if you have a kind of data center already on the premises, which many of the companies have, then we can also put the hardware there. So this is two things you need: the camera, and you need some kind of, let's say, data processing capability. And then you also need an application. And in the application, we're talking about AI, and probably everyone nowadays knows that AIs are not programmed, they are trained. So typically for these kind of special applications, like, for example, with this security stuff for these chemical reactors, you need a special training, because people working in these bodysuits with oxygen masks and whatnot, they do not look like normal persons anymore. So your standard training, your standard crowd management training will not work anymore, right? So you need a special training. And also you need to know the rules, which is sometimes could be a bit tricky because, I mean, you're talking to specialists. For these specialists, it's very clear what kind of rules need to be applied. But we are specialized in building AI applications. So we need to have a kind of back and forth discussion. What are the rules that need to be applied? And also AIs need clear rules. We sometimes have customers that, if you look at it from a, let's say, system point of view, they do not really have this kind of clear rules. If you have asked 10 people about the same rules, you have done 9 different versions of them. This is something that does not help if you want to implement AI. So basically what you need is a clear understanding of the rules that you want to apply. And you need, as I said, typically a camera, at least one, and you need the data processing capability. This could be, as I said, IoT, meaning very small one that you bring directly to the area where you want to do something, and also could be typically on premises of our partners, some classic computer center.
Yeah, and also in terms of adapting to the customer's system in the end, the main goal here is that at IrisNet, we see what the technical infrastructure, for example, is of the customer so that we can adapt to it. Of course, there are certain challenges, but we try our best to make the best use of the existing systems. And of course, on the other side, as Walter had mentioned, we offer for the processing to happen. We provide completely tailored solutions, which means that if you want the processing to happen locally, that's an option. If you want it to happen on cloud, that's an option. Or if you want on edge devices, that's also a possibility. We provide a complete ownership in one sense for the customer. On the other side, of course, especially in mission critical environments, we have already spoken with many, including you as well, for different use cases. So for example, integrating with body cams. Yes, the use cases are different in different environments. However, integration with body cams, for example, or enabling firefighters, for example, with just, let's say, body cam cameras to detect if there's a live fire, or perhaps number plate recognition. These are the possibilities within these environments.
Okay. Now let's focus on trust, security, and ethics, looking at AI reliability, cybersecurity, explainability, and regulatory trust. Trust is fundamental in mission-critical systems. What must AI systems do to be trusted in safety-critical communications environments?
Yeah, like everyone, also AI solutions need to earn that trust. Typically, Germans, let's say, are very reluctant to adapt new technology. So this means typically we allow our customers to test it first. So we allow them to test it, and if they are happy, they would actually buy it. So it's not always the case, but typically we do a demo for, let's say, tailored for their situation first. So allowing that to earn at least some of this trust. And afterwards, it's about, in the end, you have things that you need to take care of. As I said, you must make sure that you have the right amount of alarms, not too many and not less. You talk about false positives and false negatives. If you talk in AI terms, both of them are critical from our point of view. And you have to make sure that, let's say, at least 98% of the decisions are right. Because from our point of view, if you look at what normal human persons, they also make errors, and they typically are in the range of single-digit percentage, right? So, and this is the range where you have to get. So then at least, as I said, in a combination of person and AI, I personally believe this will be the best combination, because then from a classic probability point of view, you will get a very good result. Again, it's the combination of AI, persons, and you have to be the number of errors that you allow needs to be very low, and then you can earn some trust.
So just to pick up on the point then, AI, when it's implemented, has to earn the trust of the users. And I guess that will come through experience. I'm guessing also, though, that the entities that will procure from you also need some guarantees as well. What are the types of things that they are always pressing you for in terms of certain reliability, certain cybersecurity type protection, and the regulation around it? What are they particularly asking you that they need to be covered for?
It actually boils down to a few questions. The first is there some kind of certification? We are now going for an ISO 27001 certification. We already have a kind of certification for AI companies, which is based on the European law, but we also want to do an ISO 27001 certification. So they always ask for this kind of, you have a certificate. They always ask, is there some kind of standard, let's say, benchmark which is, as we said, we do tailor-made applications, and in tailor-made applications, we typically do not have some kind of benchmark. We do benchmarks in special cases, like, for example, age estimation or feature, as you said, person recognition. Yes, there are some benchmarks, but many of these applications we talked about, there simply is nothing like a standard you can just pull out and say, okay, I do this kind of test, and then everyone knows that it's working, right? So this means, as I said, the only way to do it there is we do some kind of, we call it proof of concept, meaning that at least the most important parts of the final application are already covered, so that they can see and test it and try it out in their situation. We believe this is the only way that we can finally convince someone to buy it. Proof of concept is for us a very important thing that we plan for in our projects.
And naturally, I mean, being in Europe, we are
data
compliant. So that's also already a big topic, and we ensure that we follow it diligently. In fact, we take ourselves proactive steps just so that,
Some of our systems are even installed in public spaces, and this in Germany. And that's because we are using IoT devices, meaning we work with our AI on the spot where it's actually the camera is working. And you cannot identify persons based on the data that we collect. And if there is something happening, if we, for example, see a person on the ground or an accident or whatever, then actually the GPTR allows you to record. It's just that you are not allowed to just record because you want to. So you need to have a reason why you want to record. And the AI can decide within milliseconds, meaning that even with the user AI, we actually reduce the amount, as we already discussed, we reduce the amount of data, and it's only the things are stored that are actually necessary, that you want to store. And even then we say the person should look at the recordings and say, okay, this was the necessary recording and this can be deleted.
And in cases of, let's say, recording as well, we protect everyone else's identity.
It depends. It's only necessary, Paras, if there is no reason. So, for example, if you want to use it in a public space, then actually, for example, as we talked about, you need training material. Training material we typically do not use with identifying the persons, meaning that we basically blur the faces, for example. If we train in public openings, public spaces, we blur the faces, so there's nothing anymore that you need to protect. I mean, in the end, you see a person with a coat and jeans and whatever, so it's not very interesting. And so this means for the training, we normally apply the GPTR by removing everything that is personal. And as I said, the final application helps you to reduce the amount of data and helps you to actually be in the law of the data protection law in Europe.
It is a little bit of a minefield, all of these different regulations. GDPR, ISO 27001, which is not mandatory. However, the mandatory ones are definitely coming. The NIS2, the CRA, they're all things that everyone needs to consider going forward. And this is front and center in your world. I'm absolutely certain that with the area that you work in. I'm conscious of time, so I think we'll move on, Lola, to the quick rapid fire round. So why don't you go first?
All right. Biggest AI myth in critical communications?
Probably the Terminator movies are the myth that we have to fight against, because all these AIs that people know from science fiction are perfect, which is, should everyone nowadays know that they are not. They also have their errors. And so this is the perfect AIs are the myth that we fight against all the time. And this includes deciding things that are not possible even for a person. For example, the classic one is if you want to know how to make a few $1 million in the next few days, you just ask the AI, give me the best value on the market. This is always something that will not perfectly work, simply because of the maths behind it.
Okay, so I'm going to say I want to answer from both of you on this one, and maybe Paris goes first. What's the most promising AI user case that you know of today?
I think security is one key area, especially with rising incidents across Europe in different sectors. Security is a very promising use case.
Yeah, I actually like a lot logistics applications, and this is something most people will not think about. But in logistics, you have to do a lot of documentation. It's basically not about putting things from A to B. It's about documenting that you were at point A, someone took over, put it at point B, and where he put it there. That's a lot of documentation. So meaning there, an AI can really help you to remove the huge amount of documentation that you actually have at that point. So, and I think this is a very interesting field for AI.
All right. This is the last one. Biggest risk if AI is deployed badly?
I think if you look at the current communication, it's mostly bad design complications, meaning that you do something, you actually force it on your customers, and either it does not work or it's not what they actually want. And I think this is really bad because it gives AI a bad name, right? From my point of view, if you design an AI application, you should always think about the error rate is not zero. For example, if you look at it from the documentation, as I said in logistics, you have to design it in a way that you actually take care of the fact that your application is not perfect. Sounds crazy, but it's possible. It would be a podcast in itself to talk about it. But this is something that is very important for us. To think about how you can reduce the error that actually is affecting your application.
Very interesting insights. I'd like to try and draw this to a close on this episode now and try and recap some of the points. We've talked a little bit about the decision support. So decisions are supported rather than taken away by AI. We've talked at how AI and critical communications come together. And we touched a little bit about how that impact the user cases in, say, transportation utilities and other such users who are typical users of critical communications. We touched a little bit about the trust, the security, and the ethics surrounding the whole idea of AI and its implementation. And we had even a little quick fire round where you've given us your insights on some of the questions. And I think it's probably worth our listeners to go back to listen to some of those answers again, because it's a little bit off-piste for us, as I said at the start of the episode. We tend to think about critical communications as voice. And of course, communications can be visual as well. And I think in the world that we live in today, having the capability of AI to support in other areas beyond just the vocal communication is becoming ever more a conscious part of how our networks are run today, because there is really no option for downtime on any of them. So thank you very much for that. So maybe I'll look towards closing with asking you a final question. What are your thoughts on the future of AI in mission critical ecosystems?
That's a very difficult question. I think the answer was already given by Lona. I think it's about trust mainly. So if you want to have a future in this critical communication, you need to earn the trust. You need to have applications also that actually help our customers. It's very important to have applications that are not just showing showcases or something like that, but actually help.
And I think integration with, for example, private networks right now is also a very big topic for us, wherein we have different networks like private 5G, for example, in your bigger spaces. And this is also very interesting, how we can integrate and how we can be a part of a bigger solution.
Yeah, actually, some of our customers are setting private networks up for communication with the cameras.
I think you've given the listeners some food for thought there, and there must be something that they've taken away from that they didn't appreciate before. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Paris. Just turning now to the listeners, if you've found that interesting, why don't you check out the IrisNet.de website? IrisNet is a tech startup. They're based in Düsseldorf, Germany. And they have some very, very interesting applications and consultancy offerings for you to discuss your future needs in terms of using and bringing AI to making your critical communications environments more secure. So if you found this episode interesting, then why not subscribe? We're available on all the major podcast platforms. And by virtue of recording this in video, you'll find us on YouTube too. To make it even easier, we've put all the links on our website. Just go to damcellular.com/podcast. Thanks once again to our guests, Walter and Paris.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure. And to my co-host, Lona.
Thank you, and goodbye.
I'm Stuart, and this has been an episode of Making Waves. And until next time, thank you very much, and goodbye.